What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down how you can beat pre-game nerves and anxiety. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you guys would like to improve your 40 time and get faster this offseason, check out that very first link in the description below for a 4-week wide receiver, speed, DB, any position can benefit from this speed workout program. We give you daily gym exercises to improve your speed, your explosiveness, your quickness with sets and reps and an example of each one. So check out that very first link below if you guys are interested in that and want to get faster. Let's get started with this video. So now, first thing when it comes to pregame nerves, right? It's preparation. So many guys, like you should be honestly walking into a game so sick and tired of studying your opponent that you just want to get the game over with. That's how you get rid of that anxiety and that nervousness. Nerves are completely normal. That's something that you can kind of control it, but like it's going to happen. And it shows that you care about the game. It shows that you want to be there. It shows that it means a lot to you. But the thing that gets a lot of guys is they freeze up. They're flat out scared out there because they haven't done the pre-work. You hear all the all-time greats. You hear Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, like all these guys talk about doing the pre-work, studying their opponent, knowing what their opponent is going to do before they do it. And I'm going to kind of talk to you how you could do that from a wide receiver lens in this example. So if you're a wide receiver and you're going up against a talented DB, you're going up against a guy who's good, you got to understand what he is doing better than he understands what he's doing. So what I mean by that is you should know every single coverage that he plans to come out against. So let's look at this example here. Let's look at what this wide receiver does. He's got outside shade press, and this wide receiver's got to run a 10-yard out. So let's talk about how would you do that? Take what he gives you to the inside, work a throw-by move at the top, and then is able to win on this out route. So again, that looks like this wide receiver knows what he's doing. It looks like he has a plan for this specific situation. And if you keep repping this over and over and over again, it gets a lot easier over time. It might seem like a lot right now, but if you guys continue to do this week in and week out with the opponents that you are playing, trust me, fellas, you guys are going to see a big change in the way you approach the game. Because honest to God, to get rid of pregame nerves, you have to take things one play at a time. You have to understand that if you don't do your job, the play cannot work as a whole. Football is one of the greatest games on earth because all 11 guys on the field need to do their job, right? For a play to work, the line has to block. If you're a receiver and you run a freaking awesome route, but the left tackle didn't do his job, you ain't getting the ball. If you run a great route and the quarterback misses a throw, you don't get the ball. You don't get the highlight. You don't get the big play. Everybody has to do their job. So as a wide receiver, you got to focus on your job. You shouldn't be focused on the crowd. You shouldn't be focused on making a mistake. You know what the DB is going to do. You know what the defense is going to do walking into the game. You should be so sick and tired of this defense, you just want to get it over with, like I said. So how does that apply to this specific play? So you see that this DB is lined up outside shade press. When he's lined up outside shade press, he's trying to take away the outside, right? He does not want us to run an outside route. So on film, this is how you can study your opponents. On film, if you know that he comes out in outside shade press, maybe like every single time that you get 2nd and 10, let's just use that as an example. 2nd and 10 rolls around, you got to have your head in the game. 2nd and 10 rolls around, you see that outside shade look, you already know. You already know what you're going to do. You already know the release that you're going to pick. You already know how you're going to run a specific route that you have to run. Especially if you're a high school or younger wide receiver, younger player. What they ask you to do is not that complicated. If you're an outside wide receiver, you probably have maybe like 6 routes. You probably have slants, hitches, you probably run some digs, some posts, and then probably fades. And maybe like a comeback here and there, a curl. But it's not complicated. We're not asking you to run a million different things. So you should have a plan for that outside shade press look based on the route. But it can be similar. Like let's use a slant, a dig, and then a post. When he's outside shade press, you know that, okay, he's giving me the inside. So if I got to run a slant, I'm going to attack his leverage and go run the slant. If I'm going to run a dig at 10, I'm going to attack his leverage, get up to 10 and go. Get skinny right here. If I got to run a post, I'm going to attack his leverage, take the inside release, either stack or lean into him and run the post. It's simple, fellas. It's based on the routes, inside breaking or outside breaking when you structure your plan. But if you can focus on that job, trust me, you're going to be much more comfortable out there. You're not going to be afraid to make a play. You're not going to be afraid to do something, but it comes down to preparation. So now, when it comes to preparation, like, yes, you want to have an idea, you want to have a plan, you want to make sure that, okay, DB's inside shade, I'm doing this. DB's head up, I'm doing this. He's off coverage, he's in zone, I'm going to do this. That's how you guys can be prepared, and you can just do your job. Because a lot of people have the nerves, the anxiety set in when they start to panic. They maybe haven't seen a specific look from a DB. They're worried about a crowd. They're worried about making a mistake, dropping a pass, running the wrong route, whatever it might be. But if you're super laser focused on what your job is, identifying the coverage, identify the way the DB is going to play, and how can you execute and do your job? That's all you need to be worried about. And that anxiety, that nerves will go away as soon as that first snap happens. So now, sometimes as a wide receiver especially, you have to be able to react. You have to be able to react on the fly. So you should kind of have a plan for that, and you should kind of train that, especially in the offseason. So let's look at this example here from Mike Evans. He's doing something called a split release, and he's reacting off of this DB. So a split release, some of you have probably heard of it. That's where you take your front foot, you go out, your back foot you bring up even with your front foot. So you essentially split your feet. So when you split your feet like so, you come to balance, and it allows you to read the DB, see how he is going to react. So if we know we were going up against a talented DB, a DB who likes to change things up, maybe you should have releases like this, where he's head up press. Okay, I'm going to react off of him. I'm going to split. Okay, he goes one way. I'm going to react and go the other. You have to have a plan, but you also have to be able to have a reactionary plan, as I call it. Now, that's a lot to think about, especially when you're in a game, you're trying to worry about your job, trying to worry about the play concept, trying to worry about the coverage. So this is something that you could train. What I do with my wide receivers whenever we work this split release is I'll give them a look either way. So I'll have them do this split release, but I'll act as a DB, or I'll have another kid out there act as a DB. We'll do a split, and I just either jump to the inside or jump to the outside and have them react. It's a trained reaction. So they get that engraved into their mind so they can play fast. You got to do the pre-work. You have to do the preparation, study your opponent, know what they're going to do, but you also have to rep out these different things over and over and over again so you master it. And again, so many people work on so many different things. They work on a million different releases, a million different moves. Why don't you laser in on 5 different releases that you can use and stick with that? Why don't you perfect that? And if you want to add another tool to your game, fine, but let's perfect those 5 things. So when we go into a game, we can play fast, we can execute, and we know how to execute against a specific coverage. That's how the nerves go away, fellas, especially as a wide receiver. Let's play this again full speed. Great job by Evans being able to react and have that instinct to take the inside. Okay, so now next example I want to show here, and this is like everybody's biggest fear. This is where like kind of going up against a talented DB, physical DB, where the anxiety and the nerves set in because guys are afraid to get embarrassed out there, right? And again, it comes from having a plan. So watch what this wide receiver does. This wide receiver doesn't have a plan. He just kind of runs to the outside and gets jammed. Everybody's biggest nightmare right here, getting forced all the way outside. So what could he have done? If he's running a fade where he has an opportunity to get the ball, and it's not a mandatory outside release. This is a mandatory outside release, and this is actually fine. But let's say it's not. Let's say it's a fade, because this happens to a lot of guys. This wide receiver, pre-snap, we see that we have outside shade. He doesn't have a plan. He's just going to give this move, give like a kind of a jab to the inside, and then try to run around it. DB ain't going to let that happen. He's going to hold his leverage, and he is going to force you all the way to the sideline. So what he should have done here is he probably should have come off the ball, attacked him outside, but put the brakes on and take the inside release. What's the difference between restacking with an inside release and trying to restack with an outside release? You end up at the same spot. It's just a different way of doing it. So if he would have had that plan, like, hey, I come up to the line, I see that he's outside shade, he could react and go. You won't get embarrassed if you have a plan, fellas. And that's what everybody's worried about. But if you have a plan, you know how to execute the plan, trust me, you will not get embarrassed. This kind of thing will not happen to you where you get forced to the sideline. This makes me think it was probably a mandatory outside release, but if it wasn't, you guys already know. We could take that inside release on any given route. All right, so now, main thing for this next example I want to show you is how you guys can pair things together. So to give yourself confidence out on the field, you have to have, obviously you got, like I said, you got to do the pre-work, but you also got to be able to do the mental game with this DB. You got to get into his head. Like it's one of those things like where you're like, it's why guys like will talk trash in a game, right? Because they're on the offensive, right? They're either the hammer or the nail. Like you're talking trash, you're trying to get into a DB's head, and if that's not your game, don't force it because it's going to sound real awkward. But if you're trying to get into a guy's head, you're trying to do this, trying to do that, you're on the offensive. Your confidence is high. You're trying to make him not feel confident. So how you can do that with your play is by getting in his head by making your stuff look the same. making your releases look the same, making your routes look the same. If you're a quarterback, it's the same thing as like calling a play. Like, why do you think offenses will run a play? Like, let's say the play that we are running here is like a smash. You got a hitch and then you got a corner. Why do you think sometimes they'll give the post option on smash? Because that safety starts cheating over. He's expecting the corner, then we hit the post. It's a tale as old as time. It's the whole reason football games are even made. It's just making shit look the same and trying to execute it and trying to be a salesman. So you watch this rider from this wide receiver. He gets a little hesitation move, accelerates to the outside, peeks back, gets the DB to jump, and he's able to win on a slant. So what does that look a lot like? That looks a lot like a fade. That looks a lot like a release that maybe he's done before where he'll hesitate, DB sits to the inside, and we go run a fade. That mind game that he is playing, that's what gives you confidence, fellas. But you got to have, again, brings it back to the very beginning of what I'm saying. Got to have a plan and you got to prepare. You got to do the pre-work. You got to understand that, like, okay, if this DB, whenever he's in man coverage, he plays inside shade, I got 5 different releases that all build off of each other that are going to screw with his head. And if you have that plan going into a game, like, you're always more confident. Like, think of it like you're at school. You're at school, you're about to give a presentation. When are you not confident? When you have no idea what you're talking about. When are you confident in the presentation? When you have a set plan, you have a script, you know what you're going to say. That is what will help you out in an actual football game. But not enough young wide receivers, young players do that. They just go in and play because that's what they've been doing since the time they were 7, 8 years old, which is cool. I get it. And some guys can get away with that. They're just insane athletes. But if you're not an insane athlete and you need that little extra thing, you struggle with the nerves, you know what to do, but you struggle with executing, focus on your job and just do your job. Execute the plan. And that's why I wanted to show this video, because this is what the plan is. Everybody talks about having a plan sometimes, but how you actually orchestrate it, this is how. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you guys would like to get a full 4-week speed training program to help you guys 40 time improve, check out that very first link in the description below. I'll see you guys next time.